And Craig Breslow, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good morning to you, and not lost on me. That was alive, right?
Yeah, that was alive. All right, well done.
Yeah.
Speaking of being alive, quite a night last night in this city with a full ballpark, a full basketball arena watching the Celtics, and a full football stadium paying tribute to Tom Brady. Were you able to take your eyes off the game at all last night and watch either of those two other events?
I did not. I followed the basketball game, but was watching our game pretty closely, and I think the resilience of this team shone through, and then obviously watching the Celtics game, just another dominant performance and really, really impressive.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Oh, I was just going to say, to get a win against the team that's leading the NL right now, how good is that mentally for your team, for your clubhouse? Do you see that? Do you see that pay off when you get a strong win like that?
I think so. Especially the way that we got that win coming from behind. Pavetta wasn't his sharpest, but a few big hits from some guys that were largely unheralded, and David Hamilton and Valdez, and continued great performance from Duran with a few big hits, and Devers obviously in the middle of the lineup. And then some guys that weren't on this team when we started the season coming out of the bullpen, putting up zeros, keeping us in the game, and it was a lot of fun to watch. I think, like I said, indicative of the personality of this group.
Craig, one of the things I remember from my playing days in the NFL is we used to break our season down. We played 16 games in almost like 4 quarters, and we want our record to try to be 3-1 in each of those quarters. Can you kind of give us a window into how you guys, or even if you do that in baseball, as far as like where you'd like to be, and if you're where you are as a team when you sat back and you kind of broke your schedule down? Is that something that you guys do?
Well, I think naturally we have to do it to some degree because there are certain critical inflection points during the season, obviously the trade deadline being one of them. But I think it's probably more important to look at performance, look at, the depth, the development of the guys that we needed to develop, to understand where we are. So I do think that somewhere in the neighborhood of a third of the way through the season, it makes sense to evaluate where we are. And, obviously we're at 500. A lot of has been made of the fact that we've kind of hovered around 500 for most of the season. But we've gotten strong pitching performances. Guys like Duran, Hauk, Wong, have been really, really good. And so there's a lot of reason to be excited around this team. So, getting back to your question here, I think it's look at the first roughly third of the season, kind of as you approach the deadline, but then really hone in on the individual performances and try to understand what you can do to support these guys.
This week, Alex Verdugo, who will be back this weekend in a Yankees uniform, called the Red Sox out a little bit and talked about not having the pieces that they needed. He talked about how great 21 was, and then afterwards talked about a general feeling, I guess, that should they have been given a couple extra pieces, they could have gone farther. Is that something when it comes to the player perspective that it's hard for you to balance because you were a player, so you were that guy who was probably saying, hey, we need this, and now it's your decision when it comes to deadline time about whether you go and get it for them?
Yeah, it is difficult because I don't think you want players, staff, including the manager, to think anything other than, we either have the group that we need or we're a couple of pieces away and we want the front office and ownership to support that. That's exactly what you want. That should be a difficult conversation if, a team is forced to sell at the deadline. So I have to balance those things. I've talked a lot about trying to balance the short and long-term outlooks of the team. But if it turns out that we're in a position to buy, that's great. If we're in a position where we need to sell, that's obviously not what we're looking to do. I think the most important thing we can do is be clear around the direction that we need to take.
Pavetta's been having a strong season, but not his best night last night. What was the difference there?
Yeah, I just think he wasn't as aggressive in the strike zone as we had seen. This guy is, usually fearless, willing to attack guys with plus stuff in the zone. and just felt like fastball was scattered a bit, maybe pitching away from contact a little bit more than he had in the past. He's got swing and miss stuff. He's got stuff that can get guys out in the zone. We just need to encourage him to do so. And look, if this was the bad one, we will certainly take it.
Craig, do you agree with John Henry that Red Sox fans have irrational expectations to compete for championships every year?
What I would say is, having played here, and now in this role, I think fans have an expectation that we're going to contend for the postseason every single season, and I think that's exactly what you want. The alternative, either indifference or constant criticism, is a much worse outcome. And so, rather than thinking about who I agree with, who I don't agree with, I think what's most important is just recognizing that we live in Boston, where there's an incredibly passionate fan base, and we should be thankful for that.
Craig, so Fangraphs currently has you guys at like only a 15% chance to make the postseason, even though you're only 2 games back in the wild card. Do you kind of understand why there would be a disparity like that?
Sure. But I think, we've got a bunch of games to play between now and the trade deadline, and we're going to continue to collect information, and hopefully, we'll get guys healthy. Looks like Willie's ahead of schedule, and hopefully we can get him back on the field. We know what he was capable of doing here when he was healthy in this rookie season, and we'll continue to collect information. We'll make the best decision that we can. It will be driven by the likelihood that we're able to make a playoff run, as I believe that it should. And, that's going to be driven by the performance on the field, getting guys back and getting guys healthy, and we'll make the best decision that we can.
Well, we're still waiting on your 3 favorite musical artists, so I'm going to go in a different direction in honor of Tom Brady, the greatest of all time. In your mind, the 3 greatest Red Sox pitchers of all time, Craig Breslow.
Because I have this tendency to commit to one at a time. Maybe we can, kind of drip this out over weeks. I'll get Pedro out there.
Okay.
Certainly is on that list.
All right, Pedro Martinez, and we'll check back in August and get the other 2. All right, Craig, thank you.
Exactly.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is the Red Sox front office report with Craig Breslow.
It's a good question.
Curtis, you'd have Roger Clemens on that list?
Of course.
I mean, number 1 is Pedro, and then there's a pretty big drop-off to number 2. But, yeah, Clemens.
Clemens was pretty good when he was here, though.
John Lester in my lifetime. I don't really go back to the old days. I didn't see them pitch, so I would probably have...
Schilling?
That's not fair to Greg.
That's true. Schilling.
I would pick, if you're going based on the time that I've been on the radio, I would pick Babe Ruth.
Hey!
You said Schilling?
Would you take away what, all the things he might say off the
Take
field?
away that he's a jackass?
We're just talking about Red Sox, history. Would you not have Schilling on that list?
I mean,
no, he never won a Cy Young.
I mean, if you're going to go, yeah.
Do you base it on the winning the Cy Young, or would you base it on, what they did to help you win a championship?
I would say Beckett in 07 was filthy. Schilling was great in 04. John Lackey.
What about John Lackey?
Yeah,
John Lackey was great in 13. And 18, you had the guy that came out of nowhere, the ghost of David Price. Mm-hmm. So, I mean.
What about Louis Tiant?
Well, you'd have to tell, I was a little bit too young for the Louis Tiant days, right? But you'd have to kind of get.
There are many who suggest he should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame, Louis Tiant. All right.
I mean, I would say if you want to go worst Red Sox relief pitcher of the 90s, Tony Fossas. He sucked.
All right. Well, that is Craig Breslow and the Red Sox front office report.